Detective Sarah Martinez had seen everything in her 20-year career with the Los Angeles Police Department. Murder scenes, drug busts, missing persons cases that haunted her dreams. But nothing could have prepared her for what she discovered on that humid Tuesday morning in July 2024. The call came in at 6:47 a.m. from a construction crew working on the demolition of an abandoned warehouse in downtown LA. They had found something impossible, something that would shake the entertainment world to its core. The warehouse stood like a monument to forgotten dreams, its broken windows staring down at the bustling city below. For 15 years, it had remained untouched, a concrete tomb holding secrets that no one could have imagined. The construction foreman, a weathered man named Carlos Rivera, had been the first to hear the sound coming from beneath the building's foundation. At first, he thought it was just the settling of old concrete, the groaning of a structure ready to fall. But then he heard something else, something that made his blood run cold. It was music. Faint, barely audible, but unmistakably familiar. The haunting melody of Billie Jean echoed through the darkness like a ghost from the past. Carlos dropped his sledgehammer and called his crew over, their faces pale with confusion and fear. They followed the sound through a maze of debris and fallen beams until they reached a section of the floor that seemed different from the rest. The concrete here was newer, hastily poured and poorly finished. Within hours, the police had cordoned off the entire area. Detective Martinez arrived to find chaos, news vans already circling like vultures, their satellite dishes reaching toward the sky like mechanical prayers. She pushed through the crowd of reporters and curious onlookers, her badge cutting through confusion like a sword through silk. The construction crew had already begun carefully removing the concrete, revealing what lay beneath. The discovery defied everything the world thought it knew. There, in a carefully constructed underground chamber, was a figure that had supposedly died 15 years ago. Michael Jackson, the king of pop, the man whose death had mourned by millions, was alive. Barely alive, but breathing. His once vibrant presence had been reduced to a shadow of its former self, his legendary dance moves replaced by the trembling of a body pushed beyond its limits. The room itself was a shrine to his former glory. Gold records lined the walls, their surfaces dulled by years of neglect. Costumes from his most famous performances hung like empty ghosts, waiting for their owner to bring them back to life. In the corner sat a piano, its keys yellow with age, sheet music scattered across its surface like fallen leaves. This was where he had been for 15 years, not dead, not free, but trapped in a prison of his own fame. Dr. Emily Chen, the paramedic who first examined him, would later describe the moment as surreal beyond comprehension. His pulse was weak but steady, his breathing shallow but consistent. Somehow, impossibly, he had survived. The medical team worked quickly to stabilize him, their movement precise despite the magnitude of what they were witnessing. 4 lines were inserted, oxygen masks secured, vital signs monitored with the intensity of surgeons performing the operation of their lives. As they carefully lifted him from the chamber, Detective Martinez noticed something that would haunt her for months to come. Scratches covered the concrete walls, deep gouges made by fingernails and desperation. Messages were carved into the stone, pleas for help that had gone unanswered for over a decade. The most chilling was etched near what appeared to be a makeshift bed. They said I was dead, but I'm still here. I'm still here. The ambulance ride to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center was a race against time and disbelief. Paramedics worked frantically to keep their patients stable, while news helicopters circled overhead like mechanical birds of prey. Social media exploded with rumors and speculation, hashtags trending worldwide before the truth could even be confirmed. The hospital had to shut down 3 floors just to accommodate the security measures needed for such an unprecedented situation that in the emergency room, Dr. Michael Reeves, the chief of medicine, took charge of the case that would define his career. The patient before him was barely recognizable as a vibrant performer who had once commanded stages around the world. Years of confinement had taken their toll, leaving behind a frail shell of the man who had revolutionized music and dance. Yet somehow, miraculously, the spark of life remained. The initial examination revealed the impossible truth. This was indeed Michael Jackson, alive after 15 years of supposed death. Dental records, fingerprints, and DNA samples would later confirm what the world refused to believe. But for now, in that sterile hospital room surrounded by beeping machines and worried faces, only one question mattered. How had he survived, and who was responsible for keeping him hidden from the world for so long? The story that emerged from Michael's fragmented memories painted a picture of betrayal so profound that it challenged everything fans thought they knew about their beloved icon. As consciousness slowly returned to his weakened body, the king of pop began to piece together the nightmare that had been his existence for the past 15 years. Dr. Sarah Williams, the psychiatrist assigned to his case, worked patiently to help him navigate the maze of trauma and confusion that clouded his recollections that IT had begun in 2009 during the intense preparation for his comeback tour. This is it. The pressure was enormous. 50 sold-out shows at London's O2 Arena, millions of dollars at stake, and the weight of proving that he could still command the stage like the legend he had always been. Michael had been struggling with insomnia, anxiety, and the physical demands of rehearsals that seemed to grow more challenging with each passing day. His inner circle, the people he trusted most, had offered a solution that seemed too good to be true. Dr. Conrad Murray, his personal physician, had presented a treatment plan that promised to solve all his problems. Along with several other medical professionals and close advisors, Murray had convinced Michael that he needed to disappear temporarily from the public eye. They painted a picture of a revolutionary treatment that would restore his youth, heal his body, and prepare him for the greatest comeback in entertainment history. All he had to do was trust them completely and allow himself to be taken to a private facility where he could receive the care he desperately needed. The facility turned out to be the underground chamber beneath the warehouse, but Michael didn't discover this truth until it was far too late. He had been sedated during the transport, waking up in what his captors described as a state-of-the-art medical retreat. The room was comfortable at first, equipped with everything he needed to continue working on his music while receiving treatment. They told him the world believed he was taking a short break, that his fans understood his need for privacy and healing. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. The promised treatment never materialized, replaced instead by a carefully orchestrated plan to keep him hidden from the world. His captors fed him a steady stream of lies about the outside world. His family had moved on. His fans had forgotten him. The music industry had replaced him with younger, more relevant artists. They showed him fabricated news reports about his declining popularity and invented scandals that painted him as a liability to everyone he had ever loved. The psychological manipulation was as cruel as it was effective. Michael's captors understood that his greatest fear was being unloved, being forgotten by the fans who had been his source of strength throughout his career. They weaponized his fear against him, convincing him that emerging from hiding would only bring shame to his legacy and pain to his family. They told him that his supposed death in 2009 had been the perfect ending to his story, that returning to life would only diminish the legend he had become. As months turned into years, the comfortable room gradually transformed into a prison. The furniture was removed piece by piece, supposedly for renovations that never came. The windows were sealed, cutting off his connection to natural light and the outside world. Exercise equipment disappeared, leaving him weak and dependent on his captors for basic needs. They controlled every aspect of his existence: when he ate, when he slept, what information he received about the world above. The music became his lifeline and his torment simultaneously. His captors allowed him to continue composing and recording, using his creativity as both a carrot and a stick. They promised that his new songs would eventually be released as posthumous works, that his artistic legacy would continue to grow even in his absence. Michael poured his anguish into his music, creating some of the most haunting and beautiful compositions of his career while trapped in his concrete tomb. Food became a weapon of control. Meals were irregular and often inadequate, keeping him in a constant state of hunger and weakness. Water was rationed, medical care was minimal, and human contact was limited to brief interactions with his captors. They rotated shifts to ensure that he never formed meaningful relationships with any single person, maintaining the isolation that kept him compliant and hopeless. The cruelest aspect of his imprisonment was the knowledge that the world mourned him as dead while he remained very much alive. His captors showed him footage of his memorial service, the tears of his children, the grief of his millions of fans. They twisted this into evidence that his death had brought more joy to the world than his life ever could. They convinced him that revealing the truth would only cause pain and chaos, that staying hidden was his final gift to humanity. Technology became another tool of manipulation. His captors showed him carefully curated social media posts and news articles that painted a picture of a world that had moved on without him. They fabricated stories about his family's happiness in his absence, their successful careers built on the foundation of his supposed death. Every piece of information was designed to reinforce his belief that he was better off remaining dead to the world. The physical toll of captivity grew worse with each passing year. Without proper nutrition, exercise, or medical care, Michael's body began to deteriorate. His famous dance moves became memories, his powerful voice reduced to a whisper. The man who had once commanded stadiums could barely walk across his small prison cell. Yet somehow, impossibly, the spark of his creative genius continued to burn, producing music that captured the depth of his suffering and the enduring power of hope. Detective Sarah Martinez had handled complex cases before, but nothing compared to the web of deception and conspiracy that surrounded Michael Jackson's captivity. As she sat in her cluttered office at the lab headquarters, surrounded by evidence boxes and photographs, she realized this investigation would require every skill she had developed over 2 decades in law enforcement. The case had already attracted international attention, with FBI agents, federal prosecutors, and entertainment industry lawyers all demanding answers to questions that seemed impossible to answer. The first breakthrough came from analyzing the warehouse's ownership records. The building had changed hands 17 times since 2009, each transfer involving shell companies and offshore accounts that led nowhere. Detective Martinez worked with financial crime specialists to trace the money trail, following digital breadcrumbs through banks in the Cayman Islands, Switzerland, and Luxembourg. Each transaction was carefully orchestrated to obscure the true identity of whoever had orchestrated Michael's disappearance. Technology played a crucial role in piecing together the timeline of events. Security cameras from nearby buildings had captured suspicious activity around the warehouse dating back 15 years. The footage showed unmarked vans arriving at odd hours, medical equipment being delivered under cover of darkness, and figures in surgical masks entering and leaving the building. Digital forensics experts enhanced the images, cross-referenced license plates, and built a database of everyone who had been near the site during Michael's captivity. The medical evidence was equally revealing and disturbing. Dr. Patricia Hayes, a forensic physician brought in to examine Michael's condition, documented years of systematic neglect and psychological abuse. Blood tests revealed nutritional deficiencies consistent with prolonged malnutrition, while bone density scans showed the effects of limited mobility and inadequate medical care. Most shocking were the traces of sedatives and other drugs in his system, evidence of chemical restraint used to keep him compliant during his imprisonment. Phone records proved to be a goldmine of information. Using advanced data recovery techniques, investigators reconstructed thousands of calls made to and from the warehouse over the past 15 years. Many of the numbers were registered to prepaid phones and fake identities, but patterns began to emerge. Certain numbers appeared repeatedly around significant dates, anniversaries of Michael's supposed death, major music industry events, and family milestones. The conspiracy required coordination, and that coordination left digital fingerprints. Detective Martinez's team expanded to include specialists from multiple agencies. FBI behavioral analysts profiled the type of person capable of orchestrating such an elaborate deception. They concluded that the mastermind would likely be someone with intimate knowledge of Michael's psychology, access to significant financial resources, and connections within both the medical and entertainment industries. The profile pointed to someone who had been close to Michael before his disappearance, someone he had trusted completely. The breakthrough came when investigators discovered a hidden hard drive in the warehouse's ventilation system. The drive contained thousands of hours of surveillance footage from inside Michael's prison, documenting every moment of his captivity. The videos were heartbreaking, showing his gradual transformation from the vibrant performer the world remembered to the broken man they had rescued. But they also revealed the faces of his captors, people who would soon find themselves at the center of the biggest criminal conspiracy in entertainment history. Banking records revealed a complex financial scheme that had funded Michael's captivity while simultaneously profiting from his supposed death. His music catalog had increased dramatically in value after 2009, generating hundreds of millions in revenue that flowed to various parties. Investigators discovered that several individuals had taken out massive insurance policies on Michael's life just months before his disappearance, policies that had paid out enormous sums after his reported death. The investigation expanded internationally as evidence pointed to accomplices in multiple countries. Interpol became involved, coordinating with law enforcement agencies across Europe, Asia, and South America. The conspiracy was global in scope, involving corruption at the highest levels of the music industry, medical profession, and even law enforcement. Several key figures fled their home countries as arrest warrants were issued, leading to a multinational manhunt that captured headlines worldwide. witness testimony began to paint a clearer picture of the conspiracy's scope. Former employees of the medical facility that had supposedly treated Michael came forward with evidence of forged documents and false medical reports. Security guards who had worked at the warehouse reported being told they were protecting valuable equipment, not knowing they were guarding a human prisoner. Each witness added another piece to the puzzle, revealing the massive scale of deception required to maintain such an elaborate lie. The media frenzy surrounding the investigation created both opportunities and challenges for law enforcement. Public pressure led to increased resources for the investigation, but it also meant that every move was scrutinized by reporters and amateur detectives. Social media exploded with theories and speculation, some helpful and others dangerously misleading. Detective Martinez found herself walking a tightrope between transparency and the need to protect the integrity of the investigation. Evidence collection from the underground chamber revealed disturbing details about Michael's daily existence. Personal items found in his cell told the story of his attempts to maintain hope and sanity during his imprisonment. Handwritten lyrics scrawled on pieces of cardboard, makeshift instruments created from prison materials, and a journal documenting his psychological journey through captivity. The journal entries provided crucial evidence of his mental state and his captors' methods of control. The DNA evidence found throughout the warehouse linked multiple suspects to the crime scene. Hair samples, fingerprints, and other biological evidence created a network of individuals who had been involved in maintaining Michael's captivity over the years. Forensic scientists worked around the clock to process the evidence, building cases against dozens of co-conspirators who had played roles both large and small in the conspiracy. The investigation revealed that Michael's captivity had been funded by the continued commercial exploitation of his image and music after his supposed death. His estate had generated billions in revenue, much of which had been siphoned off to pay for the conspiracy. Financial forensics experts traced money through dozens of accounts, revealing a pattern of theft that had lasted 15 years and involved some of the most trusted figures in the entertainment industry. The decision to attempt a rescue had not been taken lightly. 4 weeks after the initial discovery, medical experts debated whether Michael Jackson was stable enough to be moved from the underground chamber that had been his prison for 15 years. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the lead trauma surgeon at Cedars-Sinai, coordinated with a team of specialists to develop a treatment plan that would address both his immediate medical needs and the long-term psychological damage from his captivity. Michael's physical condition was more fragile than anyone had initially realized. Years of inadequate nutrition had left him severely underweight, his immune system compromised, and his cardiovascular health dangerously unstable. His bones had become brittle from lack of sunlight and proper exercise, while his muscles had atrophied to the point where simple movements caused significant pain. The medical team faced the challenge of treating a patient whose body had essentially been in slow decline for over a decade. The psychological assessment was equally concerning. Dr. James Chen, a psychiatrist specializing in trauma recovery, spent hours with Michael trying to assess the full extent of the psychological damage. Years of isolation and manipulation had left deep scars on his mind, creating patterns of thinking that would require intensive therapy to address. He exhibited symptoms of severe depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder, complicated by the unique circumstances of his captivity. Trust had become Michael's greatest challenge. After 15 years of deception and manipulation, he struggled to believe that his rescue was real. He questioned whether his new doctors were simply another layer of the conspiracy, whether the hospital was just a more comfortable prison, whether freedom was another cool illusion designed to break his spirit. Building a therapeutic relationship required patience, consistency, and an understanding of the profound betrayal that had shaped his recent experiences. The medical team implemented a carefully structured treatment plan that addressed both his physical and psychological needs simultaneously. Nutritional rehabilitation began slowly, with specialized formulas designed to restore his body's ability to process food properly. Physical therapy started with simple movements, gradually building strength and flexibility in muscles that had been inactive for years. Occupational therapy focused on helping him relearn basic life skills that had been controlled or restricted during his captivity. Security around Michael's treatment was unprecedented. The hospital had to balance his medical need with the reality that his survival was now public knowledge, attracting attention from media, fans, law enforcement, and potentially his former captors. Armed guards were stationed outside his room. Security cameras monitored every corridor, and only pre-approved medical staff were allowed access. The threat of another kidnapping attempt was very real. Given the massive financial interests involved in keeping him silent, music therapy became a crucial component of his recovery. Dr. Amanda Foster, a specialist in therapeutic music intervention, worked with Michael to reconnect with the art form that had defined his life. Initially, he was reluctant to sing or play instruments, the joy of music having been twisted into a tool of psychological control during his captivity. Gradually, however, melodies began to emerge from his damaged voice, tentative at first but growing stronger with each session. The integration of his family into his recovery process presented unique challenges. His children, who had grown up believing their father was dead, struggled to process the reality of his survival. His siblings, who had grieved his loss and built their lives around his absence, faced their own complex emotions about his return. His mother had aged 15 years believing her son was dead. Family therapy sessions became essential for helping everyone navigate the complicated feelings of joy, anger, confusion, and love that his survival had unleashed. Communication with the outside world was carefully controlled during the early stages of his recovery. Media requests flooded the hospital. Fans gathered outside in vigils that lasted for days, and entertainment industry executives demanded meetings to discuss his future. The medical team insisted that Michael's health was a priority, that any decisions about public appearances or statements would have to wait until he was psychologically and physically ready. Investigators worked closely with the medical team to gather evidence about Michael's captivity without interfering with his treatment. Detective Martinez conducted gentle interviews, allowing Michael to share his memories at his own pace while building the case against his captors. Each conversation revealed new details about the conspiracy, but also reopened psychological wounds that required immediate therapeutic attention. Legal experts began preparing for the complex court cases that would inevitably follow. Michael's testimony would be crucial for prosecuting his captors, but his mental state made it unclear whether he would be able to testify effectively. Victim advocate attorneys worked to protect his rights while ensuring that justice could be served. The legal implications extended far beyond criminal charges involving civil suits, insurance fraud, estate disputes, and international law enforcement cooperation. The discovery of his survival had massive implications for his estate and the music industry. Contracts signed after his supposed death would need to be renegotiated, posthumous releases would need to be reclassified, and beneficiaries of his estate would face legal challenges to their claims. Financial forensics experts worked to untangle 15 years of transactions based on the false premise of his death, a process that would take years. A complete medical specialist from around the world consulted on his case, sharing expertise in treating long-term captivity survivors. His situation was unprecedented in many ways, but lessons learned from treating prisoners of war and kidnapping victims provided valuable insights. International cooperation extended beyond law enforcement to include medical research institutions studying the long-term effects of psychological trauma. Progress came slowly but steadily. Physical therapy sessions showed measurable improvements in his strength and mobility. Psychological counseling helped him begin to process the trauma of his captivity and develop coping strategies for his new reality. Most importantly, moments of genuine joy began to emerge. A smile during a conversation with his daughter, a spontaneous dance move during music therapy, laughter at a joke shared with his medical team. The rescue was not a single moment, but an ongoing process of rehabilitation and recovery. Each day brought new challenges and small victories as Michael slowly rebuilt his connection to himself and the world around him. The man who had been buried alive for 15 years was slowly being resurrected, not just physically but emotionally and spiritually as well. 6 months after his rescue, Michael Jackson sat in a secure conference room at the federal courthouse in downtown Los Angeles, preparing to face the world for the first time since his supposed death 15 years earlier. The man who emerged from captivity bore little resemblance to the vibrant performer who had last appeared on stage in 2009, but his eyes held a fire that years of imprisonment had not been able to extinguish. Today would mark not just his return to public life, but the revelation of a conspiracy so vast and shocking that it would forever change how the world understood fame, power, and the price of both. The press conference had been months in the planning. Security was unprecedented, with federal agents, local police, and private security firms working together to ensure Michael's safety. Death threats had poured in from unknown sources who apparently preferred him to remain dead, while his former captors, many still at large, represented a clear and present danger to his life. The courthouse had been transformed into a fortress, with metal detectors, armed guards, and sharpshooters positioned on nearby rooftops. District Attorney Rebecca Torres opened proceedings with a statement that sent shockwaves through the assembled media. The investigation had uncovered evidence of the largest entertainment industry conspiracy in history, involving dozens of co-conspirators across multiple countries and industries. The financial scope was staggering. Billions of dollars had been generated from Michael's supposed death, creating massive incentive for keeping him hidden from the world. Insurance payouts, increased music sales, merchandising deals, and tribute concerts had generated a fortune built on the lie of his death. The list of those arrested read like a who's who of the entertainment industry. Dr. Conrad Murray, who had served time for Michael's supposed death, was revealed to be a central figure in the conspiracy. Several high-ranking executives from major record labels had been indicted for their roles in the cover-up. Even some members of Michael's own inner circle, people he had trusted with his life, faced charges for their participation in his captivity. When Michael finally took the podium, the room fell silent. His voice, though weakened by years of minimal use, still carried a distinctive tone that had made him one of the most recognizable voices in music history. He spoke slowly and deliberately, each word carefully chosen to convey the magnitude of what he had endured. His statement was not filled with anger or bitterness, but with profound sadness of the time lost and the trust betrayed. He revealed details about his captivity that investigators had not made public. The psychological torture had been as systematic as it was cruel, designed to break his spirit and ensure his compliance. His captors had shown him footage of his own memorial service, of his children grieving their father's death, of fans around the world mourning his loss. They had used his love for his family and his fans as weapons against him, convincing him that his death had brought them peace and that his return would only cause pain. The conspiracy's reach extended far beyond those directly involved in his captivity. Media outlets had been fed false stories about his declining health and erratic behavior before his disappearance, creating a narrative that made his supposed death seem inevitable. Medical professionals had falsified autopsy reports and death certificates. Government officials had been bribed to ensure that investigations into his death remained superficial and conclusory. Financial revelations were equally shocking. Michael's music catalog, already valuable before his supposed death, had increased exponentially in worth afterward. The conspiracy had been designed not just to hide him from the world, but to profit from his absence. Posthumous album releases, tribute concerts, and licensing deals had generated unprecedented revenue streams that would have been impossible while he was alive and able to control his artistic legacy. The technology used to maintain the deception was sophisticated beyond anything investigators had initially imagined. Deepfake technology had been used to create false evidence of his declining health. Digital manipulation had altered security footage and medical records. Social media bots had been deployed to spread misinformation and discourage investigation into inconsistencies in the official story of his death. International cooperation had been essential to unraveling the full scope of the conspiracy. Law enforcement agencies in 12 countries had coordinated efforts to track down conspirators who had fled their home nations. Swiss banking authorities had frozen accounts containing hundreds of millions in illegally obtained funds. Interpol had issued red notices for suspects who remained at large, turning the investigation into a global manhunt. The impact on his family was addressed with particular sensitivity. His children, now adults, had built their lives around the grief of losing their father. His siblings had established their own careers and families in his absence. His mother had aged 15 years believing her son was dead. The psychological support needed for family reunification was as complex as Michael's own therapy, requiring specialists in family trauma and grief counseling. Legal experts estimated that the civil litigation resulting from his case would continue for decades. Insurance companies that had paid death benefits were seeking to recover their losses. Music industry contracts based on his death were being challenged in courts around the world. Estate beneficiaries who had received inheritance based on his supposed death faced the possibility of having to return those assets. The revelation of Michael's survival raised profound questions about celebrity culture and the commodification of fame. His case demonstrated how valuable a celebrity could become in death, creating perverse incentives for those who controlled their estates and legacies. Industry reforms were already being proposed to prevent similar conspiracies, including mandatory welfare checks for high-value celebrities and stricter oversight of estate management. Medical experts testified about the long-term effects of his captivity and the ongoing treatment he would require. Physical rehabilitation was progressing well, but psychological healing would take years. The trauma of 15 years in captivity, combined with the betrayal by people he had trusted, had created complex mental health challenges that would require ongoing support. As the press conference concluded, Michael made one final statement that captured the complexity of his emotions about his survival and return to the world. He expressed gratitude to those who had never stopped believing in the possibility of his survival, anger at those who had betrayed his trust, and determination to use his remaining years to create music that would honor the time he had lost and the fans who had never forgotten him. The revelation of Michael Jackson's survival after 15 years of captivity represented more than just a resolution of a criminal conspiracy. It exposed the dark underbelly of an industry that had profited from his supposed death while he suffered in silence. His rescue was not just a physical liberation, but a moment of reckoning for everyone who had played a role in his imprisonment or profited from his absence. The king of pop was alive, forever changed but unbroken, ready to reclaim his voice and his place in a world that had mourned him as dead while he fought to survive. His last stand had become his greatest comeback, a testament to the power of human resilience and the enduring strength of hope even in the darkest circumstances.